Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Jeep in this video. Last video I was tackling the rear suspension, so now I'm going to be picking up with the front suspension. I have some shocks to put on, same as the rear, also a matching steering stabilizer, and then I do have longer upper control arms to get mounted. And I also want to loosen and retorque the upper control arms. So the new lower control arms and retorquing the uppers, because I never did that when I installed the previous lift kit. So I just want to make sure everything is, where it's supposed to be and not binding. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this camera turned around and get to work on the truck. First thing I am going to do is the lower arms and then loosen the upper arms. As you can see, I've already loosened that one up and got the nut off. It's similar to the rear. It is a 21 bolt and 24 nut. The other side I'll have to get from underneath. I'm leaving the wheels on at the moment, seeing if I can get everything with the wheels on, because that makes it a lot easier to swap the arms out. You can kind of just walk the axle on the wheel. Again, the new arms I think are only a 1/4 inch longer. Doesn't take much to offset for the lift, but they do help restore the geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and crawl underneath and get everything else loosened up underneath. All right, and then on the lower underneath the car or truck, I've already got the nut removed from there. Same thing, I was just able to get an impact. Same size as the other one, 21 bolt with a 24 nut. And then there's also a stud on the side there that has this bracket for the brake lines just fixed to it, and then that is a 15mm nut to remove the, to get the nut off and then remove this. So that leaves the lower arm loose. So I'm gonna go ahead, just pull the bolts out and pop the arm out from the car or from the truck. So here is the old control arm on top with the new control arm. Again, this is a Mopar replacement part. I believe it comes with their kits for, they're like a 2-inch lift or whatever. But it's hard to tell, and angles make things deceiving, but it is about a 1/4 inch longer, I think, is what the measurement difference is. But here is the part number. These arms, like if you look online, you can find them for like 35 to 40 bucks a piece. So for under 100 bucks, you have extended arms that fix your geometry. That is a very cost-effective option if you're looking for a cost-effective way to lift your Jeep and not spend a ton of money on adjustable arms and stuff. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this new lower arm put into place. Again, I'll probably have to walk the axle forward. That is why I left it on the ground. I can just rotate the wheel ever so slightly just to get the axle position where I need to, and then I can do the same thing with the other side, loosen it up, swap axles, walk it forward, or swap control arms, walk the axle forward, and then all I need to do is loosen the uppers up, give her a little jiggle, and torque everything down. So I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. Well, that was way easier than I expected it to be. I basically put the through bolt in on this end, had it dangling there. This hand held it up. It was ever so slightly pushed back, so I just grabbed the wheel ever so slightly and just pushed up on it. Gave me enough clearance, bolt came through, so I've got nuts loosely on both sides. So that is one side done. Now I'm gonna move over to the other side. And quick update before I do the driver's lower. I went ahead and both uppers loosened them up. Hardest part is actually there's a heat shield over the rear one that you have to remove, and there's 2 little 10mm bolts. And on the side where the exhaust swirls around and the drive shaft is on the driver's side, that one is kind of a pain in the butt to get your hand up there and get the top bolt out, but yeah, you have to get the heat shield out of the way in order to loosen the bolts. 18mm bolt with a captive nut there, so that's pretty easy. And then on the axle, it's both an 18mm bolt and nut. So yeah, those came loose pretty easy on both sides. So everything's loose on the uppers. I just need to get the lower swap. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Same as it before. It's a 21, a 24, and then you have the bracket that bolts to it as well. So I'm gonna get that lower control arm swapped. And driver's side lower control arm has been dropped. This one definitely fought me a lot more. I'm guessing it's because the other side was in, so that side was trying to lengthen the track of the truck, whereas this one was fighting up against it. So I kind of had to chock the rear wheel, keep kind of rocking it back and forth, and then also kind of hammering through from the other side on the bolts, which I hate doing that, but it was what it took because it was just so tight to get it out. So it is out. So I'm now going to go grab the new lower and get that up into place. And new lower arm is in. It actually bolted right in place because, like I said previously, the axle had already kind of shifted forward from the other side. So it was, harder getting the old one out than putting the new one in. It went right into place. Also, while I was under there, I did loosen both bolts for the front locating bar. I'm blanking on the name at this point in time. It's just been a track bar. So both the upper and the lower track bar mounts have been loosened up. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead, start the truck, cycle the steering a little bit just to try and settle the front suspension, settle the arms where they should be, and then I can go through the torquing process of all lower control arms and the track bar. All right, went ahead and moved the steering wheel, lock to lock a few times, then jumped up and down on the front end. So now I'm going to crawl underneath. Upper control arms get torqued to 80 foot-pounds at each end. Again, they're 18 mils, both the nuts and the bolts. So I'm going to go ahead, get those torqued to 80 foot-pounds, and then I'll come back and do the lower control arms. All right, uppers are all torqued, and as you can see right up there, and on the other side, the heat shields are back in place. Next is going to be the lowers. So I'm going to go get those torqued to spec. They are 190 foot-pounds, so it is pretty heavy duty, and that is at both ends, 190 at both ends. And both lowers are torqued. That was not fun, trying to get those to 190. You're definitely hanging and playing jungle gym and whatnot. It's the unlimited space and all that. But anyway, got them done. Last thing I need to do is torque the track bar bolts. Those are both going to be torqued to 110 foot-pounds. And yeah, get that thing all snug and good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the track bar tightened down so we can call this job done. And that is that. Track bar torqued. Lower one, it's a 21 mil with a captive nut. Upper is a 21 mil with a 21 mil nut. And again, they are torqued to 110 foot-pounds. So all set, everything has been put back in place and is all tightened up in the front end. Back from a quick test drive, I just wanted to check and see where the steering was at. It's ever so slightly to the left, just from moving things around a little bit, but not bad at all. I might crawl under there when I'm doing the shocks and make a little tweak to the adjustment arm, but for the most part it didn't throw it off too much. I just wasn't sure with moving the axle forward that little bit, quarter inch or whatever, what that would do as far as the steering linkage goes. So it looks like it needs to be bumped just ever so slightly, but it's not bad at all. So I'm actually out of time today. I have somewhere I have to be, so I'm gonna come back to this job tomorrow, and that will be replacing the two shocks and the steering stabilizer. So I'll be back tomorrow and get that work done. Okay, getting back to work. Time to do the front shocks. I'm going to remove the old Foxes and install Bilstein 5100s like the rear. This is the part number. Again, I just have the F marked on there because it was a box of 5 and I want to make sure right ones went to the right place. So these are, again, like the rears for a lifted vehicle. I currently do already have a 2.5-inch spacer lift on here from Rough Country. So these will be fine with the lift I currently have, and they give me a little bit of room if I want to go higher in the future. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm not gonna put the thing up in the air. I'm just gonna get in there, turn the steering wheel all the way, give me access to the shock area. And then if you look, these have spacer brackets on them. You can kind of see in this angle from the Rough Country kit. So I just need to remove the shock and the spacer bracket, and then I can just install the new shock in the old location. So I'm gonna go ahead, get in the truck, get the steering wheel cranked over to the side, and start disassembling things. So for removal, it's pretty straightforward. If you don't have this adapter bracket, it's just going to be that bracket down there. It's an 18mm bolt head and 18mm nut on the back side. Being that I had the bracket, I also had to remove a little spacer sleeve, and then there was a small 9/16 nut and bolt that I had to remove that held the bracket on. So last but not least is the top bolt, and that is a 18mm head as well. And there we are, shock and adapter bracket all taken out as one. I'll remove the brackets later because I'll probably end up reselling this kit at some point in time when I actually upgrade to springs. But yeah, pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the Bilstein out of the box and start looking at getting this thing reassembled. And as you can see, the fronts did come with instructions, the rears did not. Just to let you know, a little wind came in, that based on the way they mount is this offset bushing here basically goes to the inside of the truck. So pretty straightforward. So you'll want to have the top of the shock out towards the wheel. The long portion of the bushing goes inboard on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting the top installed, and then I can get this thing attached on the lower. I'm probably going to have to cut the band and then just kind of let it droop enough and then put the bolt in as it droops. We'll see how that goes. And the shock is loosely in. I did have to use a jack under the frame rail to raise the body up a little bit to get the suspension to droop, because even with the band on it, it was about 3 inches below the bolt hole. And instead of fighting to just try and compress it, I figured, just jack the truck up. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get everything torqued. The top gets torqued to 80 foot-pounds. The bottom is 75. So I'm gonna grab a torque wrench, get this side torqued, and then we will be done as far as the passenger side goes. And everything is torqued appropriately. So we are done on the passenger side. I'm gonna move everything over to the driver's side, get the wheel cocked over, and repeat. And there is the driver's side installed and torqued. It was pretty much exactly the same as the passenger side. I did have to lift the cab as well with the jack just to get the shock high enough to go in the bolt holes, because it was about 3 inches lower, same as the other side. So we are now all set. Shocks are installed on both sides of the front end. And on to the last thing on the list. And this is a new steering damper. This came again with the shock kit I bought. It was a 5-shock setup. This is the Bilstein part number. Here's what it looks like. And what you need to do is, first thing, you want to have the steering wheel turned all the way to the right. That will extend the factory damper out to give you access to go ahead and start removing the bolts. It's just less that you will have to compress this thing because it didn't come with anything holding it in. It's all the way extended. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab some sockets, and get the factory one removed. And here we are, factory damper is out. Pretty straightforward. The through bolt at this end, 18mm head, and it's got like a winged captive nut, but that wing actually will bend and it doesn't stay put, so you're going to need to get a wrench on it as well. It's an 18mm. Got that loosened and out. As far as the other end goes, it is just a carriage bolt with an 18mm nut on the bottom of it, and then in order to get it out, there's two 13mm there that go through the top of this bracket, and then just loosen up that 13mm, and it all just folds down and comes out. So next thing is gonna be to get the new damper. I'm gonna put the other end in with the carriage bolt, and then walk in this end, and then walk it up into place. That is the plan, because it is a little bit longer, so I'm gonna have to kind of fight with it a little bit to compress it, but the angles and whatnot should be what you need to get it into place. I'm gonna try and get this done, and I will come back once done and let you know if I had to do anything different. All right, I'm gonna apologize for the background noise. My neighbor just started cutting grass, so hopefully it's not too bad. But this is all loosely installed. What I ended up doing is putting the carriage bolt through on this end and getting it mounted there and having the nut loosely tightened. On this end, I did end up putting the bracket back into place and snugged it down, and I was able to just pull on the rod, compress it enough, and then walk it in from this side. A little lube on the rubber will definitely help to get it into place, and then I put the through bolt through, and the retainer nut is on the back. When you're tightening this, that retaining tab definitely helps with the tightening portion. It seems to hold it in place better than when you're trying to loosen it. So next thing is going to be to torque everything. What I'm going to do is straighten out the wheels so that way they're just where they're supposed to be in static position, and then the two big bolts and nuts, I'm going to go to 75 foot-pounds, and then the three small ones that hold the bracket to the axle are 30 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna go grab a torque wrench, get that centered, and get everything torqued. And there we go. Everything is installed and torqued to spec. So next thing on my list, I'm gonna fire this thing up, cycle it back and forth a couple times, make sure everything feels all right and there's no binding. If it's good, I'm gonna take it around the block, just see where the steering is at. Double check, make sure I don't have to adjust anything as far as the steering wheel position goes, and then once that is verified, or if I do have to adjust it, get it adjusted, and then this should be job done. And back for my test drive, and this is basically where the steering wheel's sitting going down the road. So I do need to just make a slight adjustment to it. That's minimal, but just to bring it back there from there. I will say the shocks are a big difference between the Foxes, much less floaty. Like you can actually kind of like do a little bit of slaloming and it doesn't feel like you're on a boat as much. It definitely feels a little more firm. So that I think is going to be a huge plus to these. So I'm going to go ahead, crawl under the front, make a slight adjustment to the steering linkage and get the steering wheel put where it needs to be, and then take it for one last test drive around the block, and then this should be job done. So real quick, here's the adjuster. It's a 15 millimeter wrench that you're going to use to loosen the clamp, and then I just use a pipe wrench, and I was basically twisting this direction to shorten it. You'll be able to see if you look at the threads which way it goes in and out. But yeah, I couple, probably not even more than a full turn. It wasn't much because it wasn't that far off, but I went ahead, got it turned in, clamped it down, just took it for another test drive, and I'm much happier with where the steering wheel is. So that is now job done. So that is going to wrap up this video. This is phase 2 of the suspension on my Gladiator complete. We'll see what'll be next on the list, but I'm gonna drive it like this for a while and then go from there. So if you like what you're seeing, if you learned something, you want to keep following along, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I do review them and I will reply. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.